Guys, video games suck these days. Let's just be honest. Because stockholders, shareholders, all those things, they want one thing, and that is money. They don't care about the gamers anymore. They don't care about what we want, what we enjoy. They just want to line their pockets with more money. We're going to watch this video. It is awesome. It's what went wrong with gaming, and let's jump into it.
I love video games. They've been my main hobby for most of my life, and now I make videos about video games, which is great. But recently I've been analysing new games and critiquing new systems, and I've noticed a slow but insidious trend toward games becoming more and
microtransactions,
more monetized, but not fairly
the devil
monetized. Anti-player monetized. It's the
okay, so if you know me, you know how much I hate microtransactions. And this is right up my alley. And this dude does such a good job of like laying it out, where it came from and why it happens. So let's keep going.
The feeling you get when you look at a battle pass in a game you've already paid full price for. It's the tiny slither of sadness when a game you want has different exclusive levels for different consoles, and you'll know you'll never get to experience every part of that game now. It's that cosmetic you want, costing 1,005 gems, but the gems are sold in packs of 1,004.
Looking at you, Halo.
It's the knowledge that year on year, the microtransactions from FIFA Ultimate Team alone make more money than Elden Ring's entire sale run. It's the
whole
unfortunate
FIFA thing is crazy.
Of gaming after the marketing executives took over. And it's hard to explain exactly how or when it changed, but explaining things is what I do. So let's go back to the start of gaming and work out when this whole mess started. And then I'll actually pinpoint the exact thing, the specific design choice which makes new games feel wrong. Welcome, I'm Josh Strife. Let's work out what the hell went wrong with the monetization of gaming. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch and YouTube who keep the channel alive. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Let's go back to the 1980s and early 1990s. The video game revolution was...
This was when Murdoch was like 20. And it gets good.
But home consoles weren't yet mainstream, so we went to arcades. You put your money in and played a game, effectively making arcades the socially accepted pay-to-play model. There's no denying arcades were bloody expensive. I remember dropping way more than I should have done to complete Time Crisis, but while this was expensive, there was a very simple relationship between the game, the money, and the player.
But I remember playing arcade games, and they were a ton of fun, but yes, they were hard, they were difficult, and because they wanted your money and everything.
Depends on your skill. Game designers knew it was a simple transaction, and they knew someone would simply play as long as they were able to, so they had to make the game hard so you would die more, and so pay more. This is why the Turtles game had that underwater bit, it's why House of the Dead bosses were damage sponges, it's why Ghosts and Goblins was everything that Ghosts and Goblins is. In the early days of home
Ghosts
consoles,
and Goblins so difficult.
Rent games, we even called difficult levels blockbuster levels, designed to make the rental period longer and so you'd have to keep renewing it. So why don't these money-hungry games make us feel the same way as modern money-hungry games? Well, it's because the trade of money for game was simple, and there was nothing insidious about the transaction itself. You knew what you were giving, and you knew what you were getting. And if you were to break down the design time of a game into a pie chart at that point, it might look something like this. Story, graphics, narrative connections between them, mechanics, marketing, playtesting, and then how much a go at the arcade costs. There was a lot.
And I think that's something where we don't experience anymore. Like a lot of us grew up in the time where that was still kind of the model and everything. And that's not the way anymore. And it like this pie chart, we're going to see it several times, but the story, we still get great story. We still like graphics that sells a lot of games and everything. Maybe narrative might not be strong enough. Mechanics might be there, but then it's like all of this gets ate up by other things
going on in the development of a game at these times, but it's all focused on making a game good, because at that time, good games make the most money. When a company...
Yeah. Like if they weren't great, guess what? People wouldn't put a quarter in them. You know, there were several arcade games that I'd walk by. I would never put a quarter on them, but hey, Hydro Thunder. Oh yeah, we playing it, baby.
Company discovered a successful game, they couldn't just augment the original with downloadable content or extra levels because that technology didn't exist yet. They'd have to make a complete sequel, and so gamers got more games. Jump forward to the mid-1990s, the home console market had taken off. You buy a console, you buy a game, and then you play that game. Now, the whole lives mechanic in games at this time was a holdover from the arcade design space and wasn't actually needed in home consoles, because you didn't need the player to put more money in. Dying when you have 3 lives, then restarting from your last save, or just dying and restarting from the save anyway with no arbitrary life limit was functionally the same thing, but design moves slowly. Away from the arcade model, you no longer paid per play, and you...
I will say, nothing angered me more. Nothing angered me more playing games that had like live limits. Like, I love Crash Bandicoot, but my God, why do we have to have that? Like, it always annoyed me.
Now paid per game, and you then played as much as you wanted. Games were expensive, of course, but when you bought a game, it was complete. If it shipped with bugs, it would just have bugs forever. If it shipped with secret unlockable stuff, it would have that forever. When you owned the game, you owned the ability to play as much as you want of the complete experience. And this was a very simple and fair transaction. While the arcade was, here's a game, pay us to have a go, the console was, here's a game, pay us to keep it and play it whenever. But the home gaming scene wasn't just consoles, it was also PCs. Now, back then...
Before we get into the PC part of it, like, I remember so many times playing games and, you know, having the cheat codes, having the unlockables, having, like, all of these things that were hidden in there. And yeah, were there games that were janky? Oh yeah, there definitely were. Like, there was no like downloadable content where it would like fix itself or whatever. And there were games that like, but it was rare to find a game that was like completely broken. And that's not the case these days.
PC games saw expansion after expansion. Morrowind seeing the Tribunal and Blood Moon expansions, Diablo 2, then the Lord of Destruction expansion, and all the extra modules for Neverwinter Nights.
Like, that is something I remember going into Walmart and seeing all of these expansions. And I'm like, that's like, I always thought, I was like, why do they have like all of these things? That's not something we get on, you know, the PlayStation or anything like that. And that was, you know, I never really understood that until we started getting downloadable content on like the 360 and PlayStation 3 era and everything.
This was additional content for a game without being a sequel. But again, gamers didn't hate this because the transaction was very simple to understand and it felt fair. You gave them money, you got an experience designed to be the most fun it could possibly be. The biggest difference in this era is there's no trickery. You're not being manipulated. It's just a straight up understandable product. If we again take the idea of breaking down game development time into a pie chart, you've probably got a few new bits to the pie by now. Magazine adverts and articles, some TV ads, and the arcade price replaced with a box price. But it is still mostly make a good game and you will make good money. Then
that is the thing right there. Make a good game and make good money. In
2004, online gaming really started to kick off, with World of Warcraft being released, but Blizzard aren't the bad guys in this story, at least not yet. For now, we need to look to the east, to another popular online game from Korea called MapleStory. Now, in Japan, the small toy capsules gachapon had been popular for years. You put money into a gachapon machine and get a random toy of varying rarity. These
We've got
appeal to people
those
who like
here in the US
things
as well.
and people who like random chance or mystery. It's basically gambling on a rather inconsequential level, but the psychology behind it is very, very powerful. So MapleStory introduced an in-game gachapon style system. 100 yen got you a ticket for a random in-game item, and many people consider this to be the first example of a random loot box. But more importantly, this was the first moment in mainstream video games where you could pay money and not know what you were getting. You were no...
That's the thing. You didn't know what you're getting. And we continue that.
No longer paying for the game or for an established product, you were paying for the mystery. The ephemeral moment of what if between purchase and eventual prize.
Yeah, ding, ding,
this
ding,
system
ding.
made a lot of money. Because
live to date franchise revenue over 3 billion. 3 billion with a B. That's crazy.
MapleStory was online, and other people could see what you won. So it was no longer about having the game and enjoying the game, it was now about a sense of community and prestige when you have something somebody else doesn't.
And that is something that Call of Duty has tried to do as well. They kind of rolled it back, but in World War II, it was the more recent World War game, Vanguard or whatever, they were going to show you when you died to somebody in multiplayer what their weapons were and how like you could buy their loadout and everything. So that's not even a thing that's gone away. People want what other people have to be better and everything.
Make your game multiplayer, competition amongst players becomes a thing, and there are a subset of players who enjoy being seen as the person with the best stuff.
Yep.
And unlike real gachapon machines, which were either a physical distance to travel to or had a queue by them or sometimes just sold out, virtual gachapon tickets were unlimited, entirely within the company's control and could be bought constantly. MapleStory already had the in-game items made, so they were selling the excitement of chance, and they were tapping into the collector and completionist mentality of many hardcore gamers. So game developers...
Well, and it's like the completionist, that kind of side of things, but it's also the gambling aspect of it. It's like trying to like get all of those things. Like there's that compulsion, when you have a gambling addiction and everything, or you like want to complete everything. Like I've got like so many Star Wars books behind me. I wanted to complete the set. I wanted to get every Star Wars book, but guess what? They just kept putting out more Star Wars books.
Began to see they didn't actually need to sell a gaming experience anymore. They could instead sell the small adrenaline spike of potential. This was a turning point. A moment investors realized it was completely worthwhile to dedicate at least some game development time, not to the game itself, but to systems within the game designed simply to extract money from the player after they had started playing, but without giving them a complete new game. This is the first part of the puzzle for where we are today. So let's put this idea of sell random chance into a little box. A box of all the design tricks which don't favor the player or make the game necessarily any better. A box of design tricks which don't make you think, oh my god, this is amazing, I need to tell all my friends, but instead use the game as a simple vehicle for additional monetization. Now, the techniques in this box are not games themselves. They cannot exist on their own. They aren't symbiotic with a game because they don't enhance each other. They are parasitic because they need the game to survive but don't necessarily improve it. We'll call this box abusive monetization strategies, or...
Okay, that right there. They are not symbiotic. They are parasitic. Like this dude is like breaking it down like nobody's business right now. And, case in point, let's talk about some Halo, guys. I know we got people that love some Halo up in here. I love Halo as well. Like, do the microtransactions, does the armor make you a better shot? Does the skin on, like, all of these things? And they don't. They don't increase your skill level. They make you look better. And like Halo is not the worst example of this. There's others that are way worse. But think about how much time goes into how can we milk as much money out of the players compared to, hey, let's fix these problems with the game because it's suffering. Oh, we need more content. Nah, we need to get more stuff that is microtransactions in there.
For a more catchy title, Pandora's Box of Bad Design. The main danger of this box is, if we were to take the pie chart of game development time now, knowing that this box exists and knowing that techniques inside it can make a decent amount of money,
$20 for an armor set is ridiculous.
People know they need to find space for the techniques within this box somewhere on the pie chart, which means something else must lose out.
So guys, what do you think loses out here in this? What do you think loses out when we've got to put all this microtransaction crap in there? Marketing's not going to lose out. The price is definitely not going to lose out. Ads, none of the ads. Graphics, maybe, but it's going to be story, narrative, and mechanics. Those are the first to go. Yeah, playtest as well. Yeah, definitely playtest. That's a good one, Murdoch. Yeah, playtest. Mechanics is brand new. Yeah, like the stuff that actually makes the game a game. That's the stuff that's going to go.
somewhere on the pie chart, which means something else must lose out. Jump forward 2 years to 2006. The Western gaming market hasn't yet discovered the mass appeal and psychological dominance that loot boxes have, but they have discovered something just as important. Gamers will pay money to look different. And it all kicks off with this stupid horse. Now,
oh my God, the armored horse. The armored horse. The meme of the meme of the meme.
I've made a complete video on the history of this horse, but the short story is The Elder Scrolls Oblivion was a great game with some great DLC, Knights of the Nine and the Shivering Isles. But you could also pay a few dollars to give your horse armor. Now, it's important to understand this is completely cosmetic. It doesn't actually make your horse any better in combat or defend it, but you can buy it. And people did.
It's horse armor, though.
In fact, a lot of people bought it, and this highlighted another thing. Making a game takes a long time, but once the main game is made, the development time it would take to make a cosmetic for that game is relatively short. And that cosmetic can be sold for a small amount of money, but it can be sold many, many times. The cost is micro, but the sales volume is high. Hence microtransaction. Separate from the idea of a complete expansion, which would expand a game and make the game experience bigger, a microtransaction adds hardly anything beyond the original experience.
Look at all those microtransactions.
But it's not free. So now developers know expansions are a bit risky, but microtransactions are very safe and very small.
And that's where we go right there, okay? Putting microtrans less risky, high return, short dev time. It's the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm. Expansions, like some of my favorite parts of games are from the DLC, the expansions. My favorite of all time is the Shadowrunner from Mass Effect 2. Love that. Also, Burial at Sea from BioShock. Loved Infinite. Loved that. Loved it. But microtransactions, like,
Even if they don't sell, it's not a great waste of developer time. So the focus shifted away from selling a main game with lots of expansions to selling the main game and then lots and lots and lots and lots of small additional things. The problem with this is now developers had a vested interest in keeping the coolest cosmetics or the most fun little things out of the base game and instead releasing them as additional microtransactions, which is something we'll see happen more and more. And this
So that right there, where the cool things get taken out of the game and get shoved in the microtransaction thing, just like, go back to Halo, go into, Fortnite as well. Like the cool things get put into the battle pass, which we'll get there here in just a little bit. So I'm supposed to blame the Elder Scrolls now? You can blame a lot of things.
Absolutely does not favor the player, because it leads to an experience where you as a player, even though you have bought the game, when you sit down to play it, you do not feel like you have access to the whole game, because you don't. It used to be you bought a game and got a game. Now it's you buy a game and you get the main framework, which you need to pay more to flesh out. So let's sell small additions to your game as microtransactions to the box of abusive monetization strategies. And as the box grows, so does the space it would need to take up on the game development pie. Now we head into 2009 to the rise of Facebook,
get ready.
One of the cornerstones of casual gaming and monetization progression, Farmville. Farmville was...
Put a 5 in the chat right now if you ever got sucked into Farmville. If you didn't get sucked in, put a 7 in chat if you at least got invited to play some Farmville, because you got invited. You got bugged the mess out of you if you didn't play it. But you definitely got bugged. You got poked, you got bugged, you got invited 20 bajillion times by all them people playing Farmville. You know it.
Was everywhere in the late 2000s, made by Zynga, and these guys were masters because Facebook was everywhere. Everyone was on it, and even non-gamers were gaming, which sounds great, but they were burning through the game too quickly. They were enjoying it and then just moving on, which was not great because Facebook is all about retention. So Farmville did something really counterintuitive to increase player retention. They gave you daily energy so you couldn't progress more than a certain amount every day. Now, these games were mostly played by people on phones and laptops, and people people got bored pretty quickly. And one of the best ways to prevent boredom is to limit your time with something. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. So energy systems limiting what actions you could take, or timers connected to growing your crops or building things and you couldn't progress them quicker.
And this is something we've seen a ton in the mobile market. Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, pretty much anything that is mobile has these timers, has these things. It all came from Farmville, the diabolical demon of Facebook.
Making the player progress only in short but intense bursts and then wait for their next fix of game. You either force them to pay more money to gain more energy or to skip the timers, or you make them return tomorrow. And this is game design focused on the formation of daily habits. The psychological power of the habit has been studied for years. Motivational speakers talk about them, self-help books push them, and now gaming companies were looking to use them as a way to turn players into users. Because it wasn't just
into users. Y'all just think about that. Into users. What does that sound like? Sounds like drugs. You know what I mean? Forming habits, that's why like daily rewards, daily login bonuses, all of those things are in place to get you to come into the game, get you to be in there, potentially buy some things. It's all there, guys. It's all there.
Just about the game being fun anymore. The focus wasn't on giving the player the best experience you could give them and letting the player enjoy it at their own pace. The focus was about the game being effective at encouraging a specific behavior response from the user. Encouraging the user to return day after day is habit forming. Someone who plays your game habitually is more likely to remain playing even after the game itself has stopped being enjoyable. They're just continuing the habit. Along with this, game designers knew you would also have friends on Facebook that may not be playing the game, and they wanted those friends to play the game, which is why they put the mechanics in the game of share this achievement with your friend to get bonuses and get boosts. A huge amount of people began playing Facebook games not because they thought they would be the type of game they enjoy, but because they were doing their friend a favor by starting up. They were supporting their farm. They were joining their mafia. And just like MapleStory's gacha being viewed
mafia,
by the players
totally
in the game,
that.
you could share the progress of your farm. You could show off how far along you were, which spurred competition. So
like that in this case, it's like people invite you. It's like, well, I don't really like, but it's like maybe you don't buy anything, but what about that friend that you invited? And then they're sinking $200, $300 in a Farmville. I know that sounds crazy, but hey, it's happened. It's happened.
Limiting progression per day and encouraging you to invite your friends to start the game to give yourself advantages or the ability to share your progression with the community, which is why achievements on almost all consoles and PCs are publicly viewable. Into the box of abusive monetization strategies. And while habitually playing something isn't generating money in itself, it does keep the audience around longer so they can be exposed to other, more successful strategies. Now, some people will point out that paying to advance more or paying to skip timers is in some ways similar to the old arcade process of dying and then putting more coins in to continue, and it is similar, but there is a crucial difference. With an arcade game, you could, in theory, finish the game entirely on skill. These timers and energy bars in games such as Farmville cannot ever be finished on skill alone, because you will hit a wall that you will need to either wait for or pay to remove. But this wasn't everything. Nowhere near. Farmville had other strategies. You had timers and you could pay to make them progress faster, but not with money directly. Now you had to convert real money into a proprietary currency. In this case,
and this is where it gets you.
And this is one of the most prevalent designs we still see used, because it does several psychological things disgustingly well. If you can buy something directly from a game, you can see the cost in a currency that you understand. But if the game displays items in their own proprietary currency, such as gems or coins or platinum or farm bucks or whatever they want to call it, you have to make one mental step converting the currency from what you understand to what you don't understand.
And that is something that Halo does, Fortnite does with V-Bucks. Like all of these games do this. It's so you don't feel like you're actually spending real money. And again, it's never the right amount. It's never the right amount. If you've ever bought anything on this where it's like, well, I need 2,400, but I only can get 1,700. and then you have to like buy the next one above that to get that. If you ever fell into that, put a 5 in chat. I definitely have.
So all these things are now one mental step away from having real value, and that is hugely important, because even one step is further than most people are willing to go. So let's add that into the box. Proprietary in-game premium currency to obscure real-world value by a single step. Bonus points if it makes you convert the currency to multiple other in-game currencies, which is almost completely impossible to track in your own mind.
Multiple
So you need to buy
now.
the currency. And this is the next trick. The currency is usually sold in packs, and these packs are specifically sized to either be just under what you actually need or very, very close to the next best thing, making you consider the next pack up. For example, if you need 100 gems to buy something in the game and gem packs are sold in packs of 90 or 205, you may as well buy the 205 pack. But then there's a really good item in the game for 210, and you're only 5 gems short. But the next pack contains 500 gems. But there's a mega item for 505 gems, and you're only 5 gems shy of that now. You're not thinking about the number 505, you're thinking it's only 5 and then only another 5. Much smaller jumps for much higher jumps in value. You'd be a fool if you didn't take them, right? So that's going in the box of bad design. But let's say you do buy a pack. Whatever pack you buy, you will spend your unique in-game proprietary currency, but then you'll discover something else. The currency is non-refundable, and it is almost impossible to spend all of it. You'll always be left with some random number, like 4 gems or 2 bits of platinum. It's never 0. And this will bother you, because in your mind, that's a waste, and you don't like waste. And if you don't spend that currency, then the game is keeping it, and you've paid for that. But the only way to make this useful is to buy another currency pack. I mean, you'd be a fool if you didn't do that, right? You can't have premium currency just sitting there in strange, unspendable amounts. It's annoying. And it's by design.
And trust me, like, that's why I hate microtransactions, because it's happened to me in various, games or other places. TikTok does it with like advertising as well. It's like they have it where you feel like you're getting a deal where you're not really getting a deal, and it's like all of these like mental games, these mental hoops that you have to jump through. And apparently Mark's Dark Tide fixed the issue. People complain and they listen. I'm glad. Like, that's the way it should be. But it's like you see like all these like sleazy tactics like piling up. They can call it something else like V-Bucks all they want. I'm well aware of what things costing. Yeah. Well, it's like where it's not a 1-to-1. I remember Microsoft used to have Microsoft points, and you would buy like a $10 card and it would be like this many Microsoft points. It wouldn't be a 1-to-1 dollar. And then they finally switched it over where it is an actual dollar amount in the Microsoft store, which I was very, very thankful for, because it was strange. It was kind of that proprietary thing and everything.
So add that to the box. But maybe you know all this, and you're not a fool. You won't spend a lot, you'll wait for a sale, but oh look, you're a brand new player and there's an offer. A load of premium currency, a boost, a few cosmetics. It's a limited time offer, and it's all for the low price of just under $1. Now, you'd definitely be a fool if you didn't buy this. If you've ever wondered why the intro packs to almost any game are such good value, it's because studies have shown people who buy a single purchase are much, much more likely to make another purchase. So you want to make the first purchase really enticing. And it's because some phones need you to authorize in-app purchases. But once you have authorized one, it will not double check for any extra purchases. So you confirm that you want to buy the cheap pack, and then it doesn't double check for the expensive packs, because every screen between the player and a purchase is a moment they could doubt and reconsider. So you want to get those, "Are you sure you want to purchase this?" checks agreed with and out the way early. Unusually cheap intro microtransactions just to get you into a habit. Let's add that to the box. And while the
Man, like it's almost insidious. It really is insidious, because it's like, the first taste is free almost. You know what I mean? Like it's like getting you hooked. It's getting that high, that dopamine hit and everything. Talked about that a little bit earlier. And it's like getting those questions out of the way. It's like, do you really want person get that out of the way when it's cheap? Get that out of the way. Yeah. And Joe, and there are deals where you think you're getting more for less. Yeah.
box is looking pretty anti-player and anti-consumer so far. It's nowhere near full. To truly see how effective this ugly design can be, we only need to go forward 1 year to 2010 and look at FIFA's Ultimate Team mode. Now, I'm not
This
really
thing
into football games,
disgusts me.
but the FIFA franchise of games actually highlights the game design shift really well. It shows how games have moved from being a fun experience by themselves to a fun enough framework that other monetization tactics will cling to like limpets. In FIFA, you can buy loot boxes, which contain random cards of players, and use these to build up your Ultimate Team. The Ultimate Team mode takes...
Now, EA is probably one of the worst about microtransactions. Hands down. Hands down, because they brought up this whole My Team thing. NBA 2K has done the same thing as well, but EA is the one that started this, and it's awful. It's also in Madden as well.
Several of the box ideas and combines them, and now the Ultimate Team mode makes more money than the box sales of FIFA itself. In fact, since 2018, FIFA Ultimate Team has generated over $1 billion in revenue per year for EA.
That is insane. EA made $1.62 billion from Ultimate Team in its last financial year. It's crazy. It's crazy.
2021, they made $1.6 billion, and it happens every single year.
Yep,
and the
every
cards
year.
you buy in the Ultimate Team for 1 year cannot be used in the next year, meaning the microtransactions now have a shelf life. Horse armor may last forever, but what if it didn't? What if you could make a player pay for it again and again every year?
Yep.
Let's add that to the box. Yearly repeating microtransactions. Now, as a developer, you'd look at this box, and think, wow, selling my game isn't the profitable thing anymore. It's what I can sell within the game. By now, the box of abusive monetization strategies is so big, it's almost impossible to ignore if you are making a game. 1 year later in 20...
Also, real quick, a lot of these sports games, they don't do a lot to actually like make them different. Like, they look very similar. The roster might be updated. There's not a lot of added things like Madden, FIFA. All of these things have gotten, kind of stagnant for a really long time. But they definitely got those micro transitions in there.
11. The MMORPG RuneScape is suffering. They had a major update to the combat system, which a huge majority of the player base hated, and this made them lose a lot of players. This is a mistake worthy of its own video, but the bottom line is, they are a monthly subscription game losing subscribing players, and they need to find a way to either recover paying members or to stem the tide of people leaving. Enter the loyalty program. Every month of membership, you now earn loyalty points, and you earn more for every consecutive month that you remain subscribed. And then you can spend loyalty points on cool exclusive cosmetics, or mechanically powerful auras and boosts. So now, cancelling your membership wasn't just a case of thinking, I'm not enjoying the game, so I won't pay, which is a very simple, understandable, fair transaction. It's now a case of thinking, I'm not enjoying the game, but if I unsubscribe, I break my loyalty streak and will earn far fewer loyalty points over the long run, which will put me at a disadvantage if I ever do want to come back in the future, which is not as fair. The transaction used to be simple, but now we're putting the player in the position of give money even if you don't want to play because you don't want to break a habit. That's going in the box. And by now, the box is demanding a bigger and bigger slice of the game design pie chart. 2 years later, 2013 sees the release of Dead Space 3, the third installment in a terrific horror trilogy. Well, sort of. While Dead Space 1 and 2 were indeed terrific horror games with tension and pacing and balanced gameplay and great stories, Dead Space 3 did something strange. It took...
Also an EA game, and EA expected this game to sell crazy amounts. Like, it was expected to sell crazy amounts.
The idea of you being a lone engineer trapped on an infested spaceship, struggling against incredible odds, using only your small collection of mining tools and very limited ammunition to survive, and it added in the ability to let you buy in-game guns with real cash from the cash shop. A horror survival game selling you in-game guns and ammo, completely defeating the atmosphere and vibe the game was going for. Selling players things they could use within your game to make the game easier. Let's add that to the box. That's effectively selling power. This one managed...
Yeah, it's like it's pay to win. And they would sell, way more powerful guns with more ammo and all this kind of stuff. It was really, really bad.
Just to out-monetize even the arcade. It would be like putting more coins into Time Crisis and getting a rocket launcher, or removing the time limit in Crazy Taxi. It sort of defeats the purpose of the original game. Along with Dead Space selling guns, we now see the MOBA game Dota 2 release what many consider the first major battle pass system. Now, when this craze started, I remember walking into gaming shops and seeing the phrase battle pass everywhere, and I had no idea what they were. Effectively, they are optional purchases which unlock a series of challenges or processes you can go through to unlock more stuff in the game, but they are time sensitive. So you buy the monthly battle pass, and if you play a certain number of hours or kill a certain number of enemies or achieve a certain number of whatever it wants you to do, you can advance along the battle pass and unlock new stuff. Now, you could just have the unlockable stuff be available for everyone to unlock anyway, but by limiting it to a timed battle pass, you're doing a few manipulative things. You're creating a fear of missing out, or FOMO, as players know if they don't have this month's battle pass, they may never get the full experience or that rare cosmetic ever again. So you are encouraging an unhealthy amount of gameplay, because if you're not advancing your battle pass, you're losing precious time. So now you're actually discouraging players from enjoying any other game and forcing them to focus entirely on progression within yours.
That right there, that is, and even I'll get to Brandon's point, that's how I felt with Halo. I was like, we've got to play Halo so we can get through the battle pass. And I know the battle pass is like 6 months for Halo, has been and everything, but it was like, to be able to get the weeklies, be able to get this, be able to, it's like that fear of missing out, really drives a lot of online games. And it becomes more of a chore than it does, oh, I want to play this game because I want to hang out with friends and I want to enjoy it. Like so many times, between matches, I gotta do this. I gotta get, 15 kills with a battle rifle. I got to, to get this challenge done. I got to do blah, 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 blah. And it's like, are you actually enjoying the game, or are you just trying to tick things off? I use Halo and all of that, but yeah, it's all of these games. It's all of these games. You see it in so many games, and thankfully, story-based games don't do this with battle passes and everything, but they do it in their own way. Most of them.
Design is of course at odds with the limit playtime technique because they appeal to different demographics. Remember, a battle pass or limited time progression track doesn't always actively improve a game, but it does always increase that game's revenue, so throw it in the box. By now, even the concept of a fun, well-made game is starting to look like a horrifically augmented shadow of its former self. Imagine what a well-made game would look like if you tried to shoehorn in all of the techniques in this box. And unfortunately, eventually, you won't need to imagine. We're seeing it more and more. Later that same year, one of my favourite games comes out, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, a fantastic pirate game. There's
Love
just one
Black
problem.
Flag.
Unless you own both a PlayStation and an Xbox and are willing to buy 2 copies of the game, you can never experience the full game. Black Flag featured console-exclusive levels, which not only fueled the petty console wars, but also highlighted the fact that marketing executives were now powerful enough to tell games developers exactly what their players deserved, or more importantly, what their non-players don't deserve. This is not player-focused design at all. And while I completely understand the power of console exclusives, when I walked into a game shop and picked up 2 copies of Black Flag and realised no matter what I choose, there is a mission I won't get to play because I don't have the right console, that didn't leave a good taste in my mouth. So while Dota may have started the Battle Pass idea...
Real quick on that, a lot of times these... For better or worse, like the console exclusive stuff is usually kind of like the lamest part of of those things, but it does stink. Like I'm thinking about Harry Potter. The Hogwarts Legacy is going to have a lot of PlayStation stuff that is exclusive. That stinks for the people that want to play that are on Xbox or PC. They're not going to get to experience those levels. I think about, Gotham, Arkham series had that as well. A lot of PlayStation stuff was exclusive. So, it's like, this is not a thing that we've seen less and less of, even games being timed exclusives. Deathloop was one of them, and even before that, Tomb Raider and all of that. So it's like things get segmented, and it stinks because like people don't get to enjoy the full thing because of where they play at. And I'm glad that a lot of things are moving away from that, where it's like, it's not, oh, because you play on Xbox you get to enjoy this. It's like, no, because you're playing this game you get to enjoy this thing. And that's one of those things that kind of annoys me. And yeah, Sony is still being petty about some of those things.
By Fortnite Season 2, which replaced the Season Shop with a Battle Pass system. And then later in November of 2017, we witness a bit of gaming history, and it fills us all with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was an amazing game which released back in 2005, not to be confused with Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was a mediocre game which released in 2017. It was a full-price game and yet also had a loot box system in it along with premium currency system. This led to a Reddit user complaining that even though they'd bought the $80 deluxe version of the game, they still couldn't play as Darth Vader from day one. Unlocking Darth Vader means buying his hero crate, which costs 60,000 in-game credits, or you can spend real money. Now, you can earn an average of 250 credits per 10-minute match at the time, so you'd have to grind for roughly 40 hours of constant gameplay, longer than the average completion time of most video games, to unlock a single rare character. Or you could pay crystals in the premium shop and spend those on hero crates and just hope. EA responded to this Reddit complaint saying the reason...
And hope. Because it was random loot boxes in this game originally. Okay? Random loot boxes. You're not guaranteed to get Darth Vader.
Crates were so expensive or take so long to unlock is to give a sense of pride and accomplishment to players who did manage to unlock them. This becomes the most downvoted comment in Reddit history.
I remember that
locking
day.
Premium parts of your full-priced game behind either hours of grind or spending even more money to unlock the cool stuff before other people who bought the same game as you. Now, it's important to understand that games having things locked within them is not necessarily bad design. One of my favourite games of all time is SSX Tricky, the snowboarding game. And as you play through that, you unlock new characters, new boards, and new tracks.
And it's like, that's how like old games used to be, where you could actually unlock stuff.
New areas is not bad. The problem was progression wasn't the only way to unlock this. You could simply pay more money to get it immediately. And because it was a competitive game, people who paid the extra money were at an advantage over those who did not. This is a video about how newer games feel wrong, and it feels wrong to buy the same game as someone else and to know that they will have an advantage over you if they pay more. Throw that in the box of abusive monetization. Why not? It's going to work. And then 5 years later, Diablo Immortal happened.
Oh god,
now, I've already covered Diablo Immortal pretty extensively in the video The Diabolically Immoral Diablo Immortal and its follow-up about the legendary crests, because it took basically every idea from the big box of abusive monetization and sprinkled them liberally over a somewhat Diablo-looking game, including multiple premium currencies, a deliberately similar in-game item which functions slightly differently to a paid version of the same thing, and multiple battle passes all called different things. But don't worry, because everyone assured me that Diablo Immortal was a mobile game, and thus would not be representative of the actual next Diablo game, which would be Diablo 4. Everyone told me Diablo 4 would be a full game by itself, with no cash shop, with gameplay first, and none of the strategies from the big box of badness. So of course there are various digital versions of the game, the more expensive ones giving you an accelerated battle pass bonus, allowing you to progress quicker, and there is a cosmetic cash shop using its own proprietary currency. And if you're thinking Diablo doesn't need all these extra bells and whistles to be a good Diablo game, you are correct. These have not been added because they make the game better, they've been added because they make the game money. And then Darktide released, which is a full price game with an abusively priced cash shop. Or you can grind for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get some of the cheap things in that shop. And now we're here. So why have games become like this? Simple, because games are businesses. Games have been businesses since arcades, since consoles allowed you to buy the game and have it in your own home. They have always wanted to make money. But up until now, the best way to make the most amount of money was to make the best game you possibly could because people would buy it, and that was it. The transaction was finished. It was fair. The best way to make money on modern games is to make the best framework as a holder for these strategies. And companies have experimented with various methods to increase income over the years, from gacha loot boxes to pre-orders, console exclusives to battle passes, energy systems to just straight up selling power. And instead of hiring game designers, they hired psychologists to build habits, to reinforce addictive behaviors, to design gameplay loops which encourage spending. The problem was these techniques were never about the player having fun. They were about the user being monetized. And when a marketing executive pictures you playing a game, you aren't pictured smiling and laughing with friends. You're pictured opening your wallet and reaching for your credit card, because that's their goal. And eventually, the Pandora's box of abusive monetization strategies was so full of proven, effective techniques that making a game is often no longer about the game, at least not for the people in charge of the money. The game is now simply a life support system for as many of these systems as you can design into it. The game is a host, and the parasite of monetization has begun to take over, and the unfortunate reality is this works. Even with a breakout incredible success like Elden Ring, which won Game of the Year and sold over 18 million copies as of this video.
18 million copies, okay? That's great. 18 million copies. All right, keep that in your hat.
At $60 a sale, that's over $1 billion in sales worldwide. That is still slightly shy of how much money Genshin Impact made this year. It is still shy of how much money FIFA Ultimate Team has made every year for the last 4 years. The reality is, when companies look at that pie chart of game development time and how they divide developer time or invested money, that big box of abusive monetization strategies, that Pandora's box of terribleness, is so effective, they would be hurting their own profit to not put at least some of the techniques in. The older designers simply didn't have the knowledge of this box, and even if they did, they didn't have the technology to act on it at the time. Modern design often puts the player into an awkward position where the game has spent more time focusing on the manipulative, abusive systems than it has on just being the best game it could be. So what is the exact choice which makes games feel wrong? Is it MapleStory's fault for adding Gachapon? Is it Oblivion's fault for the horse armor? Is it Dota's fault for the battle pass? FIFA's fault for the success of Ultimate Team? Is it Farmville's fault for mastering the addiction cycle? Or is it EA's fault for locking away Darth Vader? Unfortunately, it's kind of all.
I think it's like it's a progression. It's like, it's a slippery slope where, you take a step and then you get comfortable with it. It's like boiling a frog alive. You don't just turn on the heat all the way. You slowly increase it as it goes. And you can get it to where you literally boil the frog alive. And that's where we're at with like microtransactions is, a lot of games just like it's been so long for over the years and everything. And people got tired of me like talking about how bad microtransactions are and loot boxes and all of that. And, I just kind of stopped really, harping on it. But it was just like, this is not the way gaming should be. This is like, it shouldn't be this way where like everything, you're not getting the full game. And I'm not even talking about like when games come out and they're not finished. I'm talking about having to buy the things that actually make the game what they should be.
All of them. It's just the reality of games design today. You cannot close the lid on Pandora's box. Designers can't unknow the effectiveness of these techniques. And every game made for the rest of time has to either use them or actively choose to avoid them. So the exact choice that makes a game go from being the best it can possibly be to anti-player or anti-consumer is when a designer or a marketing executive stops thinking about how they can make the best game they're capable of and starts throwing some sly glances toward the box in the corner. And when they say, hey, this technique may not fit our game perfectly, but it's proven to make a lot of money. Do you think we could put it in our game? That is the moment any specific game goes downhill from what it could be from a player's perspective. And the worst 100%. Part is that big evil box and all its dark design knowledge is constantly being added to. And when you play a new game and spot the cash shop and the battle pass and the premium currency and the awkward pack size and the loot boxes and the exclusive levels, and when you just feel sad that the game didn't have to do that, that's when you know that the pie chart of design of this game had at least a small slice dedicated to that stupid box. A small slice focused on making the game a little bit anti-player in the name of a lot of profit. But personally, I also know it can be very cathartic to be angry at a thing instead of a concept. So let's all just collectively agree to blame the stupid horse.
There you go, guys. Check him out. I'll put the link in the chat and everything. I'll give him a sub. Josh Strife Hayes. And I think if older developers would have been able to do this, then yeah, I think they would have. I 100% think they would have. I don't think, that they, would have been just like, oh, well, like they would have went after that money hardcore. I think, it's just been over time that we've gotten here, and there are a lot of things that have slipped because of microtransactions and everything. And that stupid horse, that stupid horse.